thank you for being here. Like I said, we are really, really excited to have everybody here. We have a wonderful webinar that Marc is going to be presenting on, and it's going to be on how to basically unlock home ownership and using down payment assistance programs to do that. And so I'm going to hand the reins over to him and let him tell you a little bit about himself. He's got over 20 years of experience. He is a wonderful, wonderful expert in this field. But instead of me telling you all about him, I'm going to let him just share a little bit about himself and tell you why he's so passionate about down payment assistance.
Thanks, Ben, for that introduction. I hope everybody can hear me well. Listen, folks, I'm just honored to be here, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to Ben and definitely Rental Beast for putting this on. I'm going to give you just a little bit of background about myself because I do want to jump into why you all are here today. I've been in the industry for homeownership and real estate and lending probably for the last 3 decades. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about. I started off working for a housing counseling agency, a HUD certified counseling agency. I was a director that helped a lot of first-time home buyers really understand how to be prepared for home ownership, looking at their spending plan, looking at their financial situation, their credit, to prepare them to meet with a loan officer, lender, and being qualified. And during that time, I was able to really understand how down payment assistance helped to bridge the gap between what they have and what they needed to make their transaction work. Here's another great thing as well. I decided many years forward that I was going to now tap into the lending aspect and also the real estate aspect. So I became a licensed loan officer and a licensed real estate agent. And my niche has always been down payment and closing cost assistance. So over the years, I've been able to really help a lot of first-time home buyers, but really understand how real estate agents need this help to help their first-time home buyers in their transaction. And so that's what I'm doing now, is really focusing on that niche market. It's something that I'm truly passionate about, especially when I know that there's millions and millions of dollars out there on a state level, city level, and on a national level. And you'll see as we go into the PowerPoint a little bit more why I'm so passionate about it and how I believe as the real estate agents and the housing professionals out there in this market can really help to bridge the gap for a lot of our first-time home buyers. So I'm just happy to be here and then definitely honored to be here as well.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Marc, for being here. Like I said, y'all, we're really blessed to have him. He is a great resource, an expert in this field. So we really have a great presentation for you today, and we're going to go into a lot of content. So real quick, before we get into it, I just want to make sure we all know what we're gonna go over today and what we're going to be diving into. So there's really 4 main topics that we're going to just kind of be diving into to make sure that you guys understand. And the first one is we're going to be going over just some of the challenges that are out there for potential home buyers and what they're facing right now. We're also then going to go into the state of down payment assistance and what the programs kind of look like, what you can expect of them, just kind of go over a 101 on them real quick. And then we're going to dive into why and how down payment assistance works and get into some actual examples of programs that Marc has actually worked with and just show you how those worked. And then we're going to go into down payment insights and just give you a conclusion on what we talked about for the day. So we've got a lot, like I said, to go into. So we're going to dive right into it. And Marc, when we were talking about the content of this webinar, we spent a lot of the time, talking about the significance of wealth accumulation.
Yes.
Could you take a little bit of time to just kind of go over that and why for home ownership it's so important to wealth accumulation?
So based on my experience and what I've been able to help a lot of first-time home buyers understand truly when they're sitting on the fence, and we know that they're sitting on the fence in this market due to affordability or due to interest rate, is understanding wealth accumulation. There is a reason why there's multimillionaires, right? That are out there, whether they're entrepreneurs or self-made or what have you, making sure that they understand how wealth accumulation is a part of their portfolio. So we can have individual millionaires that have their own businesses, that have stocks, bonds, and things that they do to trade and have you, but all of them have a universal thing that's in common, and that is owning their own property, whether it's one property or multi different types of properties. So I urge a lot of our families that are first-time home buyers to really understand how wealth accumulation is built. And I've give you my personal story. I bought my first property back in 1996. And I bought that property in an area that folks weren't thinking that I should buy, right? And a lot of my friends were saying, hey, listen, why are you doing it there? But one of the things that a lot of individuals don't understand is equity, right? And equity is the difference between the market value of a property and what you owe on the balance. So let's say, for example, the property was $500,000 market value, but I owed $400,000. That's $100,000 worth of equity. Over the years, I've been able to see families take out that equity, buy a second home, buy a third home, put their children through school, open up a small business and become an entrepreneur. So that's why I believe wealth accumulation is so important. And you're going to see how we use down payment assistance to help with that equity building and that wealth accumulation as well. So I'm excited, and I think we're going to definitely nail a lot of the situations that we're having when it comes to the concerns that a lot of families have right now and individuals have when purchasing a home.
I love it. I love it. And just talking about wealth accumulation and equity. And I want to take it just a step further as we think about this, y'all, and just realize, to be able to get these repeat buyers, we got to start being invested in their benefit, helping them acquire wealth, helping them get equity in homes, because that's going to allow them to make the next purchase, an investment property, like Marc said. So by us as agents, us helping them achieve home ownership and acquire wealth, that's building our pipeline. We should take a vested interest in that and really take it personally. So this is why we're talking about it. I love how you just kind of introed that, Marc. So thank you so much for that. So real quick, when we're talking about homeowners and actually looking at their recommended just kind of savings based on age ranges, what does that average buyer look like financially when they're looking at first-time home ownership?
So that's a great question. Let me jump into this and say, I've watched a lot of the polls and surveys that are out there, and CNN recently did something where they talked about the barriers of home ownership. And 40% of Americans are dealing with the barrier of home ownership being down payment assistance, right? The second barrier was about 31% of them believe that the interest rates are still going to be an issue for them purchasing. And then the third, which was about 17%, dealt with getting actually qualified and understanding how they're getting qualified by a lender. So the chart that we're looking at right now really understands where the average saving is for an individual. NAR, National Association of Real Estate Agent or Realtors, basically has identified that the average age right now is about 36, 37 for a first-time home buyer. If you look at this chart, anywhere between 35 to 44, they're saying that on average, the savings is about $27,000 or so. And then on the median, that midpoint, high or low, you're looking at about $4,710. Now, folks, I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of individuals who have $27,000 in their bank account right now, much less $4,710. But I will tell you this, with down payment assistance, we can help to bridge the gap between what they have and what they need to make that transaction work. We know in the industry, the bare minimum for an individual down payment is about 3%. When you're looking at 3% for your down payment or 3.5%, there's still closing costs, and closing costs are ranging anywhere between 4.5% to 5%. That $27,000 on average that an individual may have, that money will be exhausted. So and they haven't even moved in the home yet. They haven't even turned the door to move into the home yet. So when we talk about that, that's why I also believe that down payment assistance can help really get them into the home and not be a financial strain on them, especially when we know that when they get into a property, there may be issues with the property, there may be repairs or things that they want to possibly do. Have them save their money to be able to do that as well. So that's why this chart, I want us to understand exactly where a lot of our buyers may fall and the challenges that they may have.
I love that. A lot of good points there. And I was just doing quick mental math of the closing costs and 3% to 3.5% down. And I'm like, okay, that's about 10%. Average home price is about $300,000. That's $30,000.
There you
Like
go.
Marc said, for that buyer between 35 to 45, that clears out all of their savings. A lot of them, if we're going to help them get comfortable, a lot of them want to have maybe a 6-month nest egg, for problems or things like that. So if we're
Agreed.
able to help them with down payment assistance, and keep money in their pocket, we're going to be able to bridge that gap, like Marc said. So a lot of good things to just kind of consider and just keep in the back of our brains as we're thinking about this. So Mark, real quick, could you give us kind of a 101 current state of down payment assistance and just maybe some key facts that you think people need to know about the programs?
Great. So there's a lot of individuals that come across my table and say, hey, listen, Mark, these are the challenges that we're seeing, right? And how do you would really address this? I'm a firm believer, again, as I've mentioned before, that down payment assistance could be a possible solution. So let's take a look at this. On average, I know that I've been able to close transactions where the individual at the bare minimum is receiving about $10,500 in assistance, whether it's coming from the state, city, or county. We also know that we can layer these programs. Now, each of the programs will have their own set of guidelines, but understanding that you can layer the programs to be able to maximize your buying power, right? And hopefully get them either as a grant or subsidy. Grant, meaning that they're completely forgivable, that they do not have to pay this money back. The subsidy, they may not have installment payments on the amount that they may have to pay back, but one year, let's say they get $10,000, but one year they choose to pay back $5,000. And at the remaining end of the year, 30-year term, they remain to pay the last $5,000. That's okay. But realizing that what we're doing is layering these programs to maximize their affordability for them as well. And then also realizing that I've been able to, and I've seen where we're able to get $100,000 or $200,000, yes, in down payment assistance. Many of you might say, well, they really don't need that much. Why would they need that much? You're going to see in the upcoming slides why I believe that's really important and how we can address some of the other issues that a client may have. I'm also a firm believer that this is a niche market. There are many individuals right now that don't understand how down payment assistance works. They don't have the resources to understand where to access those money. There's also a stigma in the market that people think that the programs do not work. They're always running out of money. Those are the things I've heard as well. And that's just not accurate. I want to tell you that it's a niche market. If you're a real estate agent out there and you're beginning in this market, this is a market that you may want to look at and add value to your clients. When you're talking about doing luxury, when you're talking about other types of properties that you're looking to purchase and help your first-time home buyers, that is great. But I'm telling you right now that down payment assistance market and down payment assistance and closing cost assistance is really going to be the new currency, along with collaboration and definitely showing your clients how you can add value to their transaction. But I guarantee you, down payment is definitely going to be the new currency for home ownership.
I love that. A lot of great points there. And I really like how you really emphasize add value to the transaction for a buyer. I know that's a hot topic for a lot of real estate agents out there with everything that's going on in the market. So this is a way, as Mark said, to distinguish yourself and maybe help some of those millions of would-be buyers who are out there, who are renting, finally achieve home ownership. And like he said, bring value to the transaction for them. So really great points and just kind of an overview of what we're seeing for down payment assistance out there. So real quick, could you review, I know we kind of went into it a little bit, but not 100%, but could you kind of go over some of the challenges or concerns that are really impacting first-time home buyers, and then a few of the ways that you see down payment assistance kind of helping, alleviate those for them?
Yes. So one of the top ones that we're seeing is definitely affordability. There are a lot of clients out there that they want to purchase, but they're really not finding anything out there in the inventory, right? And depending upon the market that you're in, it might be a challenge. For example, I'm in Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County, the prices of homes are definitely very, very high for a lot of our market and our first-time home buyers. Broward County, we're also seeing a lot of individuals that are leaving Miami-Dade County and Broward County, although we're still getting folks coming in because it's a great place to be, right? But also they're leaving to Central Florida and North Florida to look about opportunities to get the biggest bang for their buck. So we're dealing with affordability. Down payment assistance helps to really reduce the amount of the individual may have on an individual loan and make it more affordable for them. So that's how down payment really addresses the affordability issue. financing options. There's so many great programs out there that talk about financing options, but what I've really understood that a lot of clients don't understand the different types of loan products. And knowing that down payment assistance can be used for an FHA loan or a conventional loan, and even sometimes a VA loan. That really helps an individual know what best product suits them, but also realizing that they can tap into the down payment assistance and bridge that with what their loan product may have and require. And then the anticipation of the market trends. You got to know when to buy and you got to know when to sell, right? But if you understand where down payment is going and the millions of dollars that are coming in by state level, city level, and county level, the easier the anticipation of the market will be because you'll know exactly when to possibly purchase. There's also affordable housing developers that are building and they're getting land for absolutely free, no money whatsoever to build affordable housing units and tapping into the down payment assistance to do that. That's tying into the market trends. And then, of course, assets and savings. When we're talking about the assets and savings, Ben, that's another issue that down payment really helps to bridge the gap. We saw in the previous slide, the average savings. That's where the down payment assistance can really help that first-time home buyer. Financial education. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the HUD certified counseling agencies, housing counseling agencies that are doing education around down payment assistance, but are also doing education around your spending plan, your budget, your credit repair. It's a proven fact that if you don't know where you're going to fail. So creating that plan and nurturing our first-time home buyers with a streamlined process and realizing that they may not be ready now with their financial situation, but putting them on track and nurturing them along the process. As you mentioned earlier, Ben, they're going to come back at one point in time, but they've got to be able to have a strategic plan that addresses their needs for home ownership.
Perfect, perfect. Really good overview there. And I love how you really connect that to why it matters and how it connects to down payment assistance. So a lot of good just kind of information on what's going on in the market for home buyers, what they're facing, and why we're talking about this today. So I think we gave you guys a pretty good introduction here on just kind of what it looks like financially, what are some of the facts on down payment, some of the concerns of home buyers. So now let's dive in a little deeper into down payment assistance. And Marc, I know each state has different programs available. And like you said, every state, every county has different ones. However, could you give us like a general overview of just kind of the amount of down payment assistance programs available to home buyers?
So I love this. And some of you may remember or may not remember, depending on how old you are, but there was a great movie called Jerry Maguire, and it starred Cuba Gooding Jr. and Tom Cruise. And one of the lines that I love is, "Show me the money. Where's the money? Show me the money." And I'm here to tell you that there's tons of money out there, right? And looking at this chart, also done by a down payment resource center, a particular website that I like using for understanding where the down payment dollars are. In just the state of Florida, we have easily over 145 programs, right? And on a national level, there's over 2,100 programs. So as I've mentioned before, when you're working with a real estate agent or you're working with a loan officer or any housing professional, you really want to make sure that they're giving you great information and great information related to down payment assistance, because there's millions of dollars out there. And I'm a firm believer that says, listen, if you're not working with the right individual and they're not talking to you about down payment assistance to buy your home, don't walk away, run, okay? Because those are resources out there that can help you meet that transition. And so just understanding that there's monies, as an example, Florida, we recently were awarded through our state $480 million, $480 million to help with first-time home buying, but also to help with repairs, opening up a small business, affordable housing developers, building affordable housing units. So there are millions of dollars. You've just got to know where to go and how to ask the right questions to be able to understand that this is truly a niche market.
Yeah, 2,200 programs. Definitely, like you said, if they tell you they're not there or they don't handle them or they don't know, as you said, don't walk, run away. Find the right partner. So definitely want to emphasize that. So, all right, Marc, I've got a new client and I see they might be a good candidate for down payment assistance. So how do I ensure that that transaction goes smoothly, but also to determine if they're a good candidate for it? What kind of questions do you like to ask to just kind of qualify them, on the front end?
So, realtors, we always say not communication, but location, 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 right? So I'm a firm believer that communication is key. And so we also have to understand how to effectively communicate with our first-time home buyers about how to tap into these resources. The better that you are with that type of communication and explaining the guidelines for an individual to access these programs, the easier and the smoother your transaction will be. Some of these transactions take 21 days. Some of them take 30 or 45 days. The most that I've been able, or the time frame that I've been able to close some of these deals is 10 to 15 days. But that really relates to communication. And so when I say communication, I love being able to get all my home buyers on the line with my real estate agent partners, with the title company, and making sure that we've made a formal introduction. And I know some of you that are on the call are vetting your home buyer, making sure that they understand what the next steps are. The better that we continue to do that, the easier the transaction will be for all the parties involved. It's when that we're not talking about the programs effectively that we reach the pitfalls. We have to have the challenges with overcoming some of those problems along the way. But the better communication and the openness that we have, it's going to make it easier for a lot of those first-time home buyers. So, talk about down payment assistance. This is going to go directly back to the qualification questions, right? I know a lot of my real estate agent partners are asking a bunch of questions before they make that referral over to me as a loan officer. But when it comes to down payment assistance, these are just some additional questions that I would say to put as a part of your consultation. And one of them is definitely you want to know the family size. How many people are actually going to be living in the property? And I'm going to show you in a few why that's important. Also, what is their total estimated annual income? You might not understand how to do the calculation, but they may understand how to do that and get a general ballpark. You want to make sure that you understand that it's your household income. And so I'm going to go over just a quick example. Let's say, for example, my wife and I are both working. We're both W-2 employees, or she's self-employed, but we have my mother-in-law that's living with us. My mother-in-law may not be on my loan application, but she's a part of our household and she receives Social Security income. For the purposes of the program, they're going to look at her income and make it a part of our household income. And you're going to see why that's important. And then, where do you want to buy a home? Do you want to buy the home in this particular city that has certain boundaries of where they're giving affordable housing? Or do you want to buy within a county? Or do you want to buy in a different state? You got to understand where they want to buy, because depending upon where they want to buy, they could access more money and also layer that money as well. Some of the programs do come with the credit score. A majority of them may have a minimum credit score of 620, but that's where you really want to be working with your lender that understands those guidelines and understands what that credit score limit has to be. And then also realizing that the lender might have their own internal credit score guideline that you have to abide by. So it's a fine line between what the programs are going to need as far as some of the requirements and what your lender may need, okay? If you can meet that fine line in between, you're going to be able to tap into a lot of these resources. And then, do you want to live in the property for 10 years or more, or 5 years, right? What's your game plan here? What's that going to look like over the next several years? Because some of the programs have a restriction on how long they have to be an owner occupant before that amount of money is completely forgivable, okay? So if an individual might be looking to do a rehab and sell the property within the next 2-3 years, if you know that they want that money to be completely forgivable, they may have to wait 5 years. They may have to wait 10 years, depending upon the program guidelines. So it's just important that you ask those questions as a part of your consultation.
It's a great list of questions. And I really like how you explain the why too. Not just like, hey, these are what you need to be asking, but this is why. These are some of the distinctions to it, whether it's, a program issue or a lender issue and how they relate to each other. So I think that's a great breakdown on the questions and just like I said, the why, because a lot of times we hear the questions, but we don't fully understand it. I think once people start understanding the questions, it makes it more relevant and they understand what they're listening for, and what they need to be, going a little deeper on. So I
Very
love
true.
this list of questions. And I think it's kind of a natural segue into what we're talking about next, which is, all right, we've gone over the questions here that we need to be asking. What are some of the typical requirements that you're seeing for someone to actually qualify for down payment assistance?
So I love this one, and it relates to the first-time home buyer. Have you owned property or been on deed or title to a property within the last years? A majority of the programs require that you must be a first-time home buyer. But I will tell you, those programs are changing that guideline. Okay. There are certain programs that if you have been a homeowner, but you haven't lived in the property in the last year or the last 6 months, you may potentially qualify for the first-time home buyer assistance. In addition to that, there is typically one exception. Let's say, for example, I was a married individual and I went through a divorce, but I was not awarded the property or any proceeds from the property. On that day after, I would automatically be considered a first-time home buyer again, allowing me to tap into the programs. And then some of them are going to be based on score, but a majority of them are going to be relying on the lender's credit score requirement and the lien restrictions. One of a lien restriction could be, oh, if you want to tap into our down payment assistance program, you may very well, when you choose to sell the property, have to sell it to an individual that income qualifies the same way that you did for the program. So those are just some of the basic requirements, and we have a couple more as well. So household income, when we talk about household income, definitely household income is going to be important. As I mentioned, family size. When I'm talking about family size, I'm not talking about the individual that visits you as a family member and visits you 3 times out of the year, right? No. We're talking about an individual dependent that you may have on your tax returns that's actually going to be living with you. And then the geographical area. Although you might qualify as a first-time home buyer for $50,000 from a particular city, that city might have carved out certain boundaries on where you need to possibly purchase in order to access those funds. So sit down with your loan officer, sit down with the professional, and ask all those questions and making sure that you're at least meeting the basic requirements for the program. Now, sometimes the program do have exceptions where they're willing to entertain certain things because at the end of the day, they want to get rid of the money. At the end of the day, they want to see people buying homes and purchasing property. So yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I know we were you dove into the why on some of those qualification questions and as we're going into requirements. And I want to go a little bit deeper here on just the importance of household size and income. Could you kind of go over why this matters so much and maybe a few examples of why you're really focusing on it?
Great. So think about this. When we're talking about our nurses, our doctors, our teachers, our workforce housing, if you will, there are a lot of individuals that can't afford to purchase where they're actually working right now, right? Due to inflation, due to affordability issues, due to some of the other concerns that we mentioned previously. So area median income is going to be really important. When we're looking at the area median income, affordable housing is really considered to be anywhere between 50 to 80% area median income. But there's also the market rate, right? Market rate housing, 120% AMI, but I've also seen it go up to 140% AMI. Every year around April, our federal government, HUD, Housing Urban Development, comes out with these new income guidelines. And so every year they typically go up slightly, anywhere between another $5,000 or $10,000 to really capture more individuals to be able to look at their incomes and tap into a lot of these down payment resources, but also are very low to moderate income families that are making just enough to basically pay their rent. And I saw a post just the other day by Rental Beast in relation to the median rental income of about $18.95 for the last quarter, the second quarter of this year. And so it's gone up a little bit. Guess what? The landlords understand that, right? They understand that if you're renting and you're not becoming a first-time home buyer, that those incomes are not going to keep up with the cost of living. And that's why down payment assistance is also equally important to be able to help with the incomes that are somewhat marginalized, but put an individual into homes. So area median incomes are important also when looking at whether or not you may be eligible. So I say to my real estate agent partners, take a look at what the city and the counties are listing as their income eligibility chart, as you're seeing here, and determine whether or not your buyer may be possibly qualifying for some of the assistance. So just taking a look at this chart here for Miami-Dade County, and there's charts all over. Whether you're buying a home in Texas or Mississippi or somewhere else, and you want to tap into those resources, there you want to look into an income eligibility chart. So in this particular example, if I'm a family a size of 3, as long as my income does not exceed $142,940, I'm going to qualify for some level of assistance. I might not get their max, but I am going to get something, okay? And something is better than nothing. And I always say to a lot of families, if you understand where this chart is and you understand what your annual gross income, you'll be able to quickly make a determination that you could be eligible. So for my real estate agent partners on the line, I would say you want to look into this, have those lists of questions, but also vet your consumer and see exactly whether or not they could possibly be eligible for the down payment assistance program in their particular area, city, county, or state. So we're talking about $175,000, right? I love this. And this is Boca Raton's program. This is a Florida-based program, but as I mentioned, there's a lot of programs on a national level. So $175,000. And here are some of the guidelines. One of the guidelines is the area median income that we talked about. It's going up to 140%. The minimum FICO score, yes, this particular program has one, and that's 640. You can use this to purchase a single-family home, townhome, and condos. Yes, I understand that right now, the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and those guidelines are a little bit stricter now, but also as it relates to condos, this down payment assistance program can help to bridge the gap. And what I mean by that is some of those condos do not have reserves, as an example. You can use the down payment assistance to meet that 25% and go with what we call a limited review, that now we're not concerned about the possible reserves that condo association may not have. So I just wanted to quickly mention that. But also realizing that in this particular example, the minimum is $40,000. And then they sometimes have a sales price cap. This particular program has the one of $568,557. And then the DTI. You'll see that some of the programs have DTIs that go up to 52%, 53% for an FHA loan. On a conventional loan, they go up to 50%. So really understanding that the lower, as we know, the lower the debt that you have, the more discretionary income that buyer has to maximize their buying power. You keep your ratios low or have a ratio situation where it's a little bit more flexible, along with down payment assistance, it can really make it a streamlined process and more beneficial for that home buyer.
That's a great overview. I really like how you went over the AMI and then diving into what that actually looks like on a, specific example with Miami-Dade, and then going into a program and saying, hey, some of these things are what you're going to see in programs, that you're dealing with. This is what we're looking for with DTI caps, minimum assistance, credit score, the AMI amount, and just really going through it just so that people understand when they're looking at programs themselves, since every state and county is different with what they have, what they should be looking for and what some of the common, requirements are, just to make sure that someone's eligible for it. So I think that's a really great overview. And everyone, I really hope, you pay attention here, because this is where, you're going to be understanding these programs better and if they're a good fit and trying to, be a resource. So a lot of good information right in here. One other thing, you've mentioned it a few times, so we got to dive into it, is layering. And it's a way to increase that down payment assistance that the homeowner is getting. So can you go through this and actually go through maybe some examples that you've seen and successfully navigated?
Yes. So city, county, or state, Each of those programs will have their own set of guidelines. So it's really important for us to remember that as the housing professional helping that first-time home buyer. But understanding that depending upon the city or the county, they may be able to layer those programs and maximize their buying power. As an example, in one particular city, I was able to get an individual $30,000. But as we know, that city fell within that particular county, and the county was able to give them an additional $50,000. Now we're able to get them $80,000. That's what we mean by absolutely layering. But each of the programs will come with their own set of rules and requirements. So here's what I wanted to do. I really wanted to jump into a quick example for an average individual that might be looking to purchase without down payment assistance. And just take a look at this. The individual in this scenario was looking to purchase, and this is an actual transaction, individual was looking to purchase a $490,000 property. They had a family size of 4, not important at this, but you'll see how it is. And then annual income of $95,950. Their debt was about $700 a month at an interest rate of 6.875 on a 30-year fix. And their loan amount would have been about $460,750. Now, let's take a look at this, folks. If they came in with about 20% down, they would need about $98,000. And I'm not saying that they had to, but I really want us to understand that we know as housing professionals that if they're putting down the 20% on a conventional loan, they're waiving that private mortgage insurance, making that payment a little bit more affordable for it. That's why you see our PMI at 0. But there's still the closing costs. And the closing cost could be about 4.5%, which is about $20,000. When you add those two together, folks, they're coming out with a lot of money for their down payment and their closing cost requirement in this example. I will say this, there is no benefit whatsoever for them in their monthly mortgage payment. Their payment was about $425 a month. Maybe for some of us, that might be reasonable, right? But for a lot of the individuals, and based on what we just talked about with the rental beast in the Q2, the average rent is about $1,895 when we're looking at the median rent, I should say. But I want to show you how when we add down payment assistance to the transaction, it's really helped this particular client. So now let's talk about down payment assistance. Boca Raton, we talked about $175,000, right? This individual, we applied $160,000 to lowering their loan amount, thereby making their payment more affordable. It's now $3,011, saving them about $414 in their estimated payment. And they're only out of pocket because we use so much money to help lower the principal balance, but it also helped with their down payment and their closing costs. They literally had to come out of pocket with $1,500. Folks, this is a game changer for that particular family. Think about it. Multiply $414 over 12 months. Take that number and multiply it over 30 years. We're saving that individual a lot of money. But in addition to that, the greater point is they're walking into a property with $175,000 equity. Equity, folks. We know that that helps build accumulation and wealth accumulation. So not only are we saving them money over the life of the loan, and maybe they choose to sell within 5 to 7 years. That's okay as well. But we're saving them that money on their monthly mortgage payment, and they're walking into a property with equity that they do not have to pay back in this example because it's free money, and they've stayed within the property within the time frame that was needed in order for that money to be completely forgivable. Folks, this is a game changer. I don't know about you, but I wish someone had told me about down payment assistance. Not that I didn't know about it, but I thought I made too much, right? So I always say to a lot of my real estate agents and even my first-time home buyers, don't let that buyer self-select themselves out of the process. Sit down with your team, sit down with your professionals, and making sure that they understand whether or not they qualify. Because in this scenario, as you can see, it's a game changer. Imagine paying a monthly mortgage payment on $335,775 compared to the $460,000 in the previous slide.
That's such a great example, Mark. I mean, I know for me, if it's 120,000 out of pocket or 1,500 out of pocket, I'll take the 1,500 every day. And then,
Absolutely.
as you said, $400 times 12, we're talking right there, almost 5 grand a year, give or take. That's serious money that they're saving every
Yeah.
year, and then the equity. I know I'm going into the benefits here, but that's kind of segues what I want to talk about next, which is, you know, a lot of real estate agents out there are working on showing their value. You even talked about this earlier, bringing value to the transaction. Can you
Yep.
kind of discuss why being a real estate professional who understands, down payment assistance and actually has reliable lenders who can also help them with it, how that provides a massive value add to a potential buyer?
Yes. So let's talk about, before we jump into this, the definite benefits of down payment assistance, but also recently what's happening for a lot of real estate agents across the nation as a result of the NAR settlement and those rules and changes that have now come out, right, as of August 17th. I'm here to tell you that I believe down payment assistance is going to be that resource for you to help alleviate some of the issues on the buyer's agent side with not being fully compensated for that transaction and have to rely on an agreement that the buyer that they have with the actual buyer, but also somewhat at the mercy of the listing agent willing to share some of that commission as well. So let me talk to you about the benefits. And I'm already seeing notices that are coming down from the local city and the county governments. Some of these programs, hear me when I say this, some of these programs are going to rely on down payment assistance to, one, definitely help with paying those commissions, right? There are programs that are going to allow to help the buyer's agent pay for the commission. In addition to that, folks, there are some programs that won't allow it, right? But looking at yourself as a licensed professional that says, I'm adding value by talking about down payment and closing cost assistance programs, right? So if you're added value and you're getting an individual first-time home buyer access to possibly $50,000, $60,000, but they have some money set aside. In the example that we showed you, they only had to come out of pocket with $1,500. But let's say, for example, that they had $10,000 saved for the transaction, or even $6,000 or $7,000 saved for the transaction, and they only needed $1,500 out of their pocket to make the transaction work. There's still some discretionary savings there that they can now use to tap into helping a buyer's agent pay for either a flat fee or something else that's negotiated. Folks, this is really going to be a game changer for using down payment assistance as some of the top benefits. So I want you to know, as a real estate agent, that there are coming changes related to down payment assistance as a result of the NAR settlement and how we can use down payment assistance to address those issues. Not for all the programs, but for some of them. But going back to the actual benefits for the actual buyer, when we talk about down payment assistance, you can see it help with the principal reduction. We know that they're going to pay on exactly what their loan amount is. So it helps with the principal reduction. Reduce the monthly mortgage payment, making that monthly mortgage payment more affordable. There's nothing greater than having less out of pocket, especially if I'm a first-time home buyer and I'm buying a property that might have some issue, whether it relate to plumbing, whether it relate to electrical, and I don't want to necessarily go into making a monthly mortgage payment and not have enough money to do any repairs. The potential growth of equity, walking into a property with equity. We know in some markets, the values of homes are increasing astronomically. And you want to make sure that we understand using down payment assistance can help combine to that appraised value and the appreciation of that property. And then you're reducing the financial strain that a lot of the first-time home buyers are going through. You bring the added value as a real estate agent by guiding them. Definitely understand that you've got to be able to be engaged. You've got to be the guide. You got to be able to pick up that phone. I always tell my real estate agents, do I have your direct line or do I have the bat phone, right? I want the bat phone number because that's the one you're going to pick up, right? So making sure that we understand that our clients want to be able to be engaged with us, making sure that they know that these are our available hours. Please feel free to reach out to me and have that communication. And we've got to show up and give some accountability to not only ourselves in the process, but also holding our buyers accountable. And so down payment assistance offers a tremendous amount of benefits, and these are just some of them.
These are great. I mean, I hear a lot from real estate agents and professionals who are saying, how do I show my value? How do I convey my value? What should I be talking about? I think I saw a list by Canopy out in Charlotte. It was like 150 ways or something that you bring value. But these
Yeah,
five right here, they're easy to, make clear to a buyer. They're easy to state. They're easy to build value propositions around and really just say, this is how I help you on one of these five, and this is why. And this is why being an expert or just understanding where these resources are and how to pair with the right lender, this is how you're able to write some of those value propositions and really craft them on points that, actually hit on the challenges that new home buyers are facing. So I love these. I think they're great. If you're looking for, hey, where do I show my
yeah,
value, value propositions, I would go right to these five. They're perfect for that. Um,
excellent.
so now that we've kind of gone into it, let's actually go over where to find some of these resources and information on down payment assistance, especially stuff that we can share with our clients. Could you kind of go through some of those for us?
Yes. And so down payment resources. I'm a firm believer that, you just got to tap into what all those resources are. You can Google, you can check the internet, but there's one particular site that I'm using and I love using, and that's DPA one. That's a Freddie Mac DPA one. They rolled this out about last year. And what it is really a database. But I want you to understand we're actually developing software pieces and information about down payment assistance program. This is a very robust site, but there's other sites out there as well that will give you information. But I love this particular site because you can put in a particular area, let's say for, as we have up on the screen, Florida, and this is no cost to you whatsoever. So if you're a real estate agent, Google Freddie Mac's DPA one, you sign up, you can log in and quickly identify whether or not there are affordable housing programs within that particular city or county or state that the individual is looking at purchasing. So, great site. It gives you not only the requirements and the contact information. Here's some screenshots for it. Thank you, Ben, for that so much. But also realizing that, if you wanted to check out whether or not they meet the annual income, right? On the annual income eligibility chart, you can click on that link and definitely understand, okay, I have a buyer that's a family size of 4, and this is how much they make on an annual basis. Could they possibly be considered for this affordable housing program, right? And then if they have that credit score requirement, I also will tell you that contacting directly those individual agencies and administrators will also help you as that licensed professional build the relationship, right? Because as we know, it's going to be about collaboration going forward and building the relationship. And over the years, I've been able to build those relationships. And so when I make a call and I say, hey, listen, I have another buyer and they're dealing with this particular issue, can I get around it? Or can I better have a letter of explanation so that they can move through the program? You'll be surprised that based on the relationship, they're willing to make some exceptions because, as I mentioned, at the end of the day, they want to make sure that we increase our home ownership numbers for all the individuals involved.
And I want to say, guys, I went on to DPA one. It took me less than a minute to probably get signed up, registered, and searching for programs. So it is very, very painless. It's very easy. It's a great resource. I would definitely recommend it. So definitely check it out. It's a great one for you. Marc, I know, you're in Florida and we have a relationship with Miami's MLS. So real quick, are there any specific programs to Florida that you really like or items that you also would recommend agents looking further into as a good launch point for their DPA or down payment assistance education?
Yes. So the real hot button right now is definitely the Hometown Heroes, right? Hometown Heroes just rolled out for the 3rd year, July 1st. And when it first came out, it was typically only for what we call the Hometown Heroes, our firefighters, our doctors, our nurses, our teachers. Well, our governor and the state realized that, you know what, let's open up this program for everybody involved. But there are some requirements, as you know, for a lot of the first-time home buyers. But when they rolled it out the 2nd year, they opened it up. And as long as you're working for a Florida-based company and working 35 hours or more, you're able to qualify. And their max is up to $35,000, 5% of the loan amount, up to a maximum of $35,000. Well, they rolled it out this year again, the 3rd year. And I foresee that coming up next year, they'll roll out another $100 million. But guess what, Ben? This particular $100 million has literally now been fully funded about a week ago now. So with a matter of July 1st to now August 20th, that money has been fully funded. Last year, it was done in about 3-4 months. This year, less than 2 months. So I tell a lot of my first-time home buyers that are sitting on the fence, what are you waiting for? And real estate agents, understanding that those monies are going to be replenished, okay? But even outside of the Hometown Heroes program, there are other programs. I'm just giving you a few here. In Broward County, there's $80,000 in a forgivable grant that you can tap into. Hometown Heroes, we talked a little bit about. $100,000 in Miami-Dade County, right? Up to $175,000 now in Boca Raton, and then $200,000 in District 5. I want you to do as much of the research as possible, see what your clients' best interests are, and understanding that the area median incomes will be changing for a lot of these particular programs, but it typically always increases every year. It doesn't decrease. So when we're talking about those resources, understanding where to look for those resources. And thank you, Ben. When we're talking about State Housing Initiative program, those are programs that have been issued by the state to help with affordable housing concerns. Look at your housing authorities, your finance agencies. Some employers actually have down payment assistance programs and initiatives. You know what I've done? I've also done a lot of lunch and learns for a lot of employers that say, you know what, we also understand that we're losing individuals moving out of this particular area due to affordability. How can we retain our employees? By talking about down payment assistance, reaching out to them and saying, hey, listen, XYZ company, I'd love to be able to do a lunch and learn. Could I come in with a real estate agent partner and educate you on down payment assistance? There's credit unions that you can tap into. HUD certified counseling agencies. You know, I love working with HUD certified counseling agencies. There's easily over 2,100 nationwide. HUD certified counseling agencies have been chartered by Congress to be able to help first-time home buyers understand how to become a first-time home buyer, how to look at their credit, how to look at their lending, how to look at their actual finances and seeing if they're prepared. So understanding how you as a real estate agent professional can tap into those HUD certified counselors and say, you know what, I'd love to be able to attend your home buyer education classes. The home buyer education classes are certifications that are typically anywhere between 4 to 8 hours that allow individuals to be educated and informed and empowered. But you as a real estate agent professional can reach out to those HUD certified counseling agencies, get on their calendar and present yourself. And typically I've been in the room of 40 to 50 individuals on any given Friday or Saturday to understanding how I can add value as that real estate agent or that loan officer professional. So I urge you, HUD certified counseling agencies are definitely an untapped market. Your community development corporations, not only chartered for helping first-time home buyers, but bring me back to the affordable housing developers. Affordable housing developers are building in our communities. I work with a lot of affordable housing developers that are building and putting online 100 units, 150 units. What you want to do as a housing professional and a real estate agent is say, hey, you know what? When is your next project? I'd love to be able to connect with you and see if I can be one of your preferred real estate agents and build out those relationships. Tax credits. We know that, you know, the average tax credit for an individual based on the mortgage credit certificate is about $2,200 to $2,500 each year that an individual can get. And that's income towards them when they file their taxes. So these are just some of the minor, and I know it's a lot, but minor resources that are out there. And there's so many resources related to down payment assistance and how you can build those strategic partnerships and relationships to not only help your first-time home buyer, but truly add value and giving them the assistance that they need.
This is perfect. And it's a great list for our agents here, you know, who are saying, hey, where do I get started? You got it right here. Here's a perfect list for you. Also, like you said, look into DPA 1 by Freddie Mac. I know I saw 1 or 2 questions on what the program name was, so just want to say that again. It's DPA 1 by Freddie Mac. So real quick to just kind of wrap up what we're talking about today, Marc, Can you go over a few ways that you're seeing down payment assistance? Loan officers partner with listing agents or buying agents to try to get, more
Yeah,
awareness or just,
yeah.
publicity around the ability to work with down payment assistance.
Yeah. So definitely, when we talk about down payment assistance, these are some of the things. I just was finished talking about the Hometown Heroes program. We're able to build strategic relationships. For an example, if I come across a listing agent that has a particular property that they're interested in, definitely making sure that we're advertising the actual program for them. So if they have a listing property that they're looking at, we're able to say, you know what, is that in a particular city? If that's in a particular county, here's what a buyer can possibly access in assistance to help with the purchase of that listing, right? So we come together with flyers, we come together with resources to be able to do that. And what I love about this is it gives the buyer an incentive to purchase that property. If I'm a listing agent and I can come up with this type of marketing and strategic plan, now I can say to that particular buyer that, you know what, great. We're offering this assistance. You're working with our preferred lender. You're working with us. We can get you $40,000 or $50,000 in order to purchase that particular property.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Marc, a lot of great information here. Really appreciate you just kind of diving into down payment assistance for us. And really thank you for just helping educate us on this. So before we move into our Q&A for a few minutes here, I really want to just go over a few action items for people. I know everybody likes, what should I do next kind of steps. So we got 3 for you here. So here they are. We want you to actually explore and create an account with DPA1 from Freddie Mac. It doesn't have to be them, but we recommend them. It's a great launching point. Then start to actually get familiar and learn about popular state and local programs that are relevant to you. And then start to actually build your network. Connect with these lenders who actually specialize in down payment assistance so that you can really focus on this niche and really start actually, helping clients in that area move forward with home ownership. And I think those are 3 really great ways that we can get going. So Marc, thank you again so much. We're going to open it up for Q&A. I see we already have a handful. I don't know if you have a few minutes to stay a little bit over, but if you do,
Absolutely, I do. Before we jump into the questions, I just want to say a big thank you to Ben for definitely helping putting this on. But I want to give a shout out to a couple of people that really organized this as well behind the scenes, and that is J.R. Alexander. J.R. Alexander is a real estate agent. Ricole Jackson is an attorney. When we talk about team building, this is my team that I love working with. Okay, also Crystal Mister Bishop, Jari Filson, and others. Michelle Beatty. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but this is really just a great opportunity for us to really understand how we work with our real estate agents, but also our title companies, the attorneys, the HUD certified counselors that are out there as well. Build your team. I know for a fact that going forward, it's going to be about collaboration. It's going to be about down payment assistance, and it's going to be about really showing up and holding each other accountable and creating that value added. So I just didn't want to leave yet and get into the questions without thanking those individuals. And I'm just happy to be here and answer some of the questions. Go right ahead.
I love it, Marc. And like you said, JR and Ricole, they are amazing people. They've worked with us as well, so I can definitely vouch for them. We actually had her on for a webinar on going over just kind of what mortgage programs look like and how to create a converting renters to buyers funnel. So if you're not aware of those, go to our help center, Rental Beast University, check those replays out. They're wonderful. So let's dive into Q&A here. First one we got is the down payment a lien on the property?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. So it is a lien on the property, but as I mentioned earlier, that lien can possibly come off after 5 years or 10 years, okay? They really do want you to be an owner occupant of that property. But yes, depending upon the types of layering that you have your first mortgage lender that's going to be in first lien position, then you may have a down payment assistance program that's going to be in second position. I do layer programs, but I will tell you this. I found that typically, one program is enough to cover for their down payment and their closing costs. So there's no need for a third lien. And so if you're a real estate agent professional, you want to tap into maybe at least one program, but explaining that program is a lien, just like your first mortgage is. And depending upon how long you're living in that property as an owner occupant, that lien position could easily drop off.
I love it. I love it. We got a really good question here. I think this is great. It's from Kim. It's how do we make our offer more attractive to sellers when other offers may not be using down payment assistance programs?
Great question, Kim. I believe that was the name. So I would say, be transparent. I've talked to a lot of listing agents, or excuse me, buyer's agents that are afraid to talk about down payment assistance. There's a stigma out there about them taking long. When I talk about your team, it's really important that you understand who your team is and making sure that you're giving good information. And so one of the things that I do with a lot of my real estate agents is I said, we're about to begin this process. You're in contract and great, congratulations. But let's get everybody on the call, from the listing agent to the buyer's agent to the buyers themselves to maybe even the title company. And I want to talk to them about down payment assistance, the program that we're using, and why it's helping the buyer and how smooth it is. And I also want them to understand that they can rely on me as the lender and loan officer. When they need to make a call, I'm going to pick up the phone. When if they don't understand something, that I can address it immediately. So I would say to you, Kim, the better that you are at explaining the pitfalls or the benefits of the program and keeping that listing agent or all the parties involved along the way, it makes it easier for everyone involved. Especially, I've also said that I've also seen where an individual property might be on the market 160 days, 180 days. What a great opportunity to give them a first-time home buyer and take that property off the market when it may only need an additional 30 days or 45 days. And in some cases, when you're working with a state program like Hometown Heroes, as I mentioned, you can close that transaction in 21 days or less. So those are the ways that I would possibly address the issue, and I hopefully have answered the question for you.
I love it. That's great information. We got another one here from Taiwana, and she says, can a client use down payment assistance to pay off debt on their credit report?
Wow, I wish that was the case, but listen, that may come down the line, and you would have probably heard it here first, but I will tell you, no, they cannot, okay? It's really to help them bridge the gap between what they have and what they need to make the transaction work. But if you look at it this way, if I'm getting you $40,000 or $50,000 in assistance, that's also hopefully giving you more discretionary income and savings to pay off some of the other debt that you may have, right? So that's why I say, let's look at it that way, where if an individual that you come across may have $10,000, maybe they only need $5,000 and the other five can be used to pay off some of the debt, to making their affordability and maximizing their buying power effective.
Perfect, perfect. I've seen a few questions here, so I'm going to kind of merge them all in. And I know you talked a little bit about the difference of subsidies and grants, but basically the general synopsis is, does the money have to be paid back? Is it forgiven after, so many years? How is it forgivable? Can you go into that just a little further for us?
Okay, so we talk about lien positions, right? You have your first mortgage and your second mortgage lien position. One of the requirements and the stipulation of that note on that mortgage for that particular program may be that you must be, as an example, the owner occupant within the property for the next 10 years. The moment that you are past the 10 years and a day, that lien position comes off. Whether or not you may have to reach out to the administrating of that program and say, hey, you know what? I'm no longer I'm meeting your requirement of the 10-year forgivable. Please remove that lien position. They will then notify the first mortgage individual lender and remove that lien position and release that lien position and give you the documentation related to that lien position being released. So typically, you really want to be a first-time home buyer. I will say this. I've seen situations where an individual is not a owner-occupant of the property when that 10-year comes or that 7th year is into the transaction. I haven't seen where an individual administration comes knocking on the door and says, hey, listen, we know that you're not the owner-occupant anymore, but just realize, and your first-time home buyer needs to understand this, that position, that lien position, let's say it's $50,000, that loan or forgivable grant could be accelerated where they would have to pay that money back. Okay. So I will say this. If you're looking at down payment assistance, also realizing that at some point in time, if they choose to sell that property, hopefully there's enough equity in that property to repay that loan if they choose to leave the property before that 10-year lien restriction is up. Okay.
A lot of good info there. All right, we got three more questions and then we're going to wrap up, folks. So Adrian asked, if the buyer accepts the assistance, does it do anything to the interest rate on the loan?
So great. No, it does not for a majority of the programs. Some of the programs dictate what the interest rate is. And I'm going to go back to the one that I know, but there's others out there. And that's the Hometown Heroes. The Hometown Heroes dictates what the rate is going to be for the 30-year loan. So they determine what it is going to be for the first mortgage lender and what they're willing to loan on. Okay. And so that is the total amount. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Some of the programs, and I would say lean to say probably about 97% of the programs do not have an interest rate associated with them. The interest rate is really related to that first mortgage lender. But if you do have an interest rate, it's typically for the down payment assistance program, it's only going to be related to the amount that they're willing to lend you. Otherwise, it's just going to be a forgivable grant, and you're only relying on the first mortgage lender's interest rate.
Perfect, perfect. Yari asked, what is something that property may not qualify for down payment assistance to purchase a home? So I think they're saying maybe property types, maybe.
Right. So I'll give you one, and that is a duplex, right? A triplex, a quadplex. Those are considered income producing properties. So income producing properties, a majority of the programs will not allow it. There may be some programs on a national level that will allow that exception to happen, but it's typically for single family homes, townhomes, condos, and planned unit developments. Okay. And hopefully I've answered the question, but I will tell you that, there are going to be some changes where they're going to open it up to other types of properties as well. So just look out on the horizon, vet the program, look into the program guidelines and see what's truly affordable for the buyer, but also that it meets the requirements as far as property type.
Perfect, perfect. All right, last one. We're going to wrap up after it. I appreciate you taking extra time here, Marc, and everyone who stayed on for the extra information. But does down payment assistance work? I'm sorry, if a person buys a home now but would like to purchase a bigger one within a year, can they qualify for any programs, or are there any programs to help them with that, even though they're not a first-time home buyer?
Right. So great. And I'll say to you this. A lot of individuals would have to be definitely a first-time home buyer. That 3-year requirement is also changing though, right? So you have not owned a property in the last 3 years. So let's say I did get down payment assistance today and it was $50,000 and I closed. 3 years from now, or from the date of the sale of the property, I would be able to consider myself another first-time home buyer eligible for a other assistance program as well. But please keeping in mind that it's a 3-year requirement, right? But I think there's going to be a lot of programs that are changing that requirement to be able to say, you know what, let's go ahead and take a look at possibly removing that 3-year requirement and maybe reducing it down to only a year or 2 years, okay? But there's always going to be some exceptions. It's just a matter of what the program will allow.
Perfect, perfect, Marc. I lied. We got 2 more coming in here at the end. And if they weren't really, really strong, I'd say, hey, let's wrap up. But I think these are really great questions here. So I'm sorry for lying. But basically, the question is, has there been any discussion on down payment assistance about buyer compensation? How would that work if the agreement requires the buyer to cover all or the difference of compensation based on the agreement? Can the funds be applied towards closing costs in this scenario?
So all down payment assistance programs, typically you can use that money towards your down payment and your closing costs, okay? So I want you to look at, if you're a buyer's agent, look at it as 2 different ways. One, there are going to be some programs that will allow the down payment assistance to be used as a compensation to pay the buyer's agent. There are a majority of them may not, but give it some time, they may change that. Now, Also relating to, as I mentioned earlier, if I'm creating value for that home buyer and that home buyer may have $10,000 or $15,000 saved, but I only need $1,500 of that money to make the transaction work because I've layered it with down payment assistance, then I can be considered an added value agent to that home buyer, be able to tell them, hey, listen, I've got to work out some sort of agreement, whether it's a flat fee or a percentage compensation with being able to pay for my services based on the new guidelines. So you have two different ways of looking at how down payment assistance can definitely help that buyer's agent, but also in tandem help that first-time home buyer, not necessarily use their out-of-pocket funds to be able to be used towards the down payment and the closing costs, and have a little bit more discretionary income to pay that buyer's agent either as a flat fee or a percentage.
I
Great
love it.
question.
I love how you break that down too, and just talk about how, hey, it might not be able to be used, but it allows them to not use the money that they've saved for a down
Yeah,
payment. So there's other ways of maybe navigating this
correct.
and looking at it. Real quick, this kind of dovetails on it, but basically the question is, can closing costs on VA mortgages, can the programs be used for that, or are there any challenges with working with a VA mortgage and, down payment assistance?
So the VA mortgage, when we talk about the VA mortgage, the Veteran Administration, and if anyone's on the line that has been a veteran, thank you for your service. Definitely appreciate you. And I do believe that they're changing those guidelines related to down payment assistance as it relates to our veterans as well. But yes, there are programs where you can combine, even though you might be a VA and have 100% funding and financing, you are able to use a down payment assistance to at least take care of your closing costs, right? So there's still typically a closing cost requirement with being a veteran and using a VA loan. But absolutely, could you use down payment assistance to help bridge that gap? Without a doubt, you can.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, Mark, I know we kept you here about 10 minutes past how long I said I'd keep you here. So I really appreciate you taking the time to make sure that everyone in the audience got their questions answered. But not only that, just for a wonderful webinar, being a wealth of information and helping everyone here start to think about how can we navigate down payment assistance to really help, make home ownership achievable. So thank you so much for being here.
No worries. Ben, one last thing.
Sure.
I got a call today. There's a lot of individuals that are leaving this market as housing professionals, whether they be a real estate agent or even a loan officer. I just want to tell you, stay the course, okay? There's resources that are coming that can help you do the job better, and stay the course because we still need you. There's a lot of individuals that are marginalized that unfortunately don't know where to go, don't know who is going to be the right professional. And so stay the course and realizing that there's resources out there because we do need your services and we do need your professionalism. So thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you. Honored.
I love it, Mark. That's a great closing message. And everyone, thank you so much for taking your time to join us today. Again, Mark, thanks for being here. And we will see you all again for another webinar the last week of September. We'll be back with another Expert Series 1. So thank you again for everybody who made this happen, and for Mark for presenting a wonderful webinar. We'll catch you guys next time.
Take care, everybody. Bye now.